the first part of your rehab protocol then is going to be rest, I take it, for X number of weeks, depending on the size of the injury.
Yeah, I think that's it's an interesting word, rest, isn't it? Is that we need to take them out of
Yes.
all extension-based exercise.
Yes.
So my protocol would be around 2 weeks of absolutely nothing. So irrespective of the grade, I want to give the bone a chance. We know that invariably what happens is my analogy of the person who starts running and you start to get that bone remodeling is it takes between 7 and 28 days for that bone to toughen up enough to cope with a little bit more load again. So if we can pull them out of all activities, so no gym, no kicking, no throwing, no running, for 2 weeks, then most of these will become pain free, which is great. And the only thing I do let them do is walking on the flat, and if they have access to a static bike, I will let them carry on exercising on a static bike, because that's a flexion based activity where we know it's predictable. It's not riding their bike down the mountain bike trails and going over bumps. It's just going into a flexion based activity, which helps just build a little bit of sanity into the thing. Most of these sporty kids are going to go absolutely nuts when you tell them that they are going to be out of sport for invariably 12 to 16 weeks. So starting something that feels positive on day one and is not going to harm them, in my opinion, is not a bad thing.
It must be quite hard to get any child to adhere to a no exercise regime, because just in the playground at school, they'll be running or jumping or jostling around with each other, won't they? Is that ever a risk as far as you're concerned?
The younger they are, the worse that is. So in the ones that I get that are still at what you might call the playground phase, the 8 to say 11
Mm.
year olds, they're still in our junior school environment. Um, they are way more problematic. And for the most part, what we say is that they're going to be on indoor play in those early weeks, just because they just can't actually trust themselves. It's not that I don't trust them, but they can't even trust themselves that if a ball came along, they wouldn't kick it, throw it, or join in. And one of the biggest issues here is that that child gets very isolated very quickly.
Yeah.
So it's balancing that. And I don't use a lot of bracing, but actually, in my very young children, those 8 to 9 to 10 year olds, especially if they've got a bilateral injury, is I will actually brace them just so they remember that they've got a problem. And so that it actually just, I'm not sure there's the evidence around does bracing actually cause restriction of motion at those lumbar spine segments is actually quite mixed. But what I think it does do is cast a reminder that they've got an
Mm.
issue. So in my little ones, I might well use that because I think it is very hard for them to remember or to adhere to the program. But if you said to a slightly older child, I think I can get you back playing sport, probably stronger and fitter, and maybe, doing things better than you were doing before, because we rarely get this chance to do this strength work. You're normally too busy to do it. Is that if we could keep you in a really good controlled program for about 8 weeks, then that's going to make a massive difference. Because if we get this wrong, the likelihood is that this could become a more serious injury that's not going to affect you long term. I think we've got to make sure we don't cause fear, but is likely to mean that you're out for the rest of the season. These take on average 4 to 6 weeks, 4 to 6 months, sorry, to heal if we don't get it right in those early phases. And faced with 2 months or 4 to 6, most kids, if you give them that really clear explanation, you remove the
Mm.
fear, but most importantly, you tell them what the implication of non adherence is. There's not that many of them that really kind of decide at that point that they're going to kind of
Yeah,
not
true.
stick to it.